to turn to the library project, we have a blockchain update blockchain result function, and it's very important for us. Okay, in the blockchain struct, we have a update method, and it's very important to use it because when we add a new transaction to a block and then add a new block to a blockchain, we need to update the chain of blocks, and for unspent transactions, and for managing the amounts of your transaction, for managing inputs or outputs of a transaction amount, you need update function. So we have some role for insert to the blockchain, and if you got an error, you need to more and go back to these roles. And as you can see, we have a hash set vector of primitive type U8 for unspent outputs, and our blockchain object is a permanent and static for adding some blocks and transaction to it. There are many details about roles. For example, when we need to calculate fee of transaction, we need to input inline for result of fee. Okay, let's go back to the documentation. For difficulty, you need focus on it because it's very important, and it's a subject that's related to the nonce field of transaction. For example, when you add more zero at the first of your difficulty, and then we will have highest difficulty and taking more time to run it, and so we need to try more produce the nonce. Okay, let me go back to our method of trying nonce. We have blockchain mine function for getting nonce based on nonce attempt. So if we have a more zero at the first of difficulty, this function need to be more calculate and need to be consume energy in the POW consensus algorithm. Another important function, it would be about block struct. In the block struct implementation source, you can see any clone or copy attribute in your Rust program, and it's one of difference between this project with another projects that there are some blockchain scratch project on internet and GitHub repositories, but many of the project use copy and clone for the application of block, and we know the fundamental blockchain that we don't have permission for copy or block block. So when you clone or copy a block, so we don't have any blockchain. So if you need more details about the difference between clone and copy, you can read the section of concept for the application, and don't worry if you need research more, you can at the first you research in this document, and then you go another reference. Okay, we don't have enough time. Let me go back to documentation, and we needed to overview some important method, and after this section, we're going to jump right into the JSON deserialize. In the transaction, we need the amount of value and some role in the Coinbase transaction model. So don't require inputs for produce and output. And this feature allows the miner to collect off the transaction fee in that block and that block's reward. So for consume IO hash and value closure, you can use IO enums that are used in closure return value. Let me go back to source code. Today the weather is very hot, and if you have any question, please save them for after my presentation, and there is no time. Let's chat about it afterwards. Okay, return closure IO. We have input or output for return closure, and then we implement as a kind of polymorphism in the project. We don't have exactly object-oriented in the Rust, but it's near to OOP concept. For example, you can use some return closure for implementing different in your function. And as you can see, I have another important method, factory, and I get the closure as a parameter in this method, and after that based on selected mode by a user, the code try to find blocks and transactions, for example, from the file JSON, and it's split transaction and try to get inputs and outputs of transaction, and there's a consensus relation and collaboration between some struct value transaction block, and top of them it's a blockchain struct. Okay, you can have access to unit test or integrity test, and as you can see, I implement the another model of a program with lifetime, and if you eager to know more about lifetime, you need to use this file in the path of test command moda.rs. The goal of unit test is actually to make sure that we won't face any errors, and it's important while we are deploying the release version of program. For access to the results of in the runtime, we can have access to CI actions of our project. As you can see, we have result of cargo run in GitHub CI, and if you need create a web page for getting file from clients or user, and then convert it to your object JSON, you need and I research about WebAssembly. There are many solutions about WebAssembly, and I prefer to use wasmer.io because it uses WebAssembly interface module or name of WASI, and I think it would be better than another solutions. So if you need a new challenge that stretches you, you can contribute to the repository and continue the material. For example, implementing WebAssembly, and then share with the group. There are many algorithms and strategy in the infrastructure and blockchain, like smart contracts and using a multi-signature, and I don't know can I do it in a short time or not. For real project, the smart contract written by ROS need to be compiled and deployed to the blockchain. This can be achieved by using main network of blockchain like Solana, Avalanche, or Polkadot. So let's work on it together on the repository as a contributor. I hope you enjoy, and if you have any suggestion, please let me know. Good have a time, so long.